My fiancé's brother married his affair partner, now they're demanding I let their triplet daughters be flower girls at my wedding. Hey everyone, I'm a 25-year-old woman, and I'm getting married this August to my fiancé, Jackson, who's also 25. We actually met way back when we were just 5 years old. I was wandering around the woods near a Catholic church not far from my house, and that's where I found him, lost and a little scared. We clicked instantly, and honestly, we've been inseparable ever since. I'm incredibly thankful for that. Jackson comes from a big family, 5 siblings in total. There's John, who's 35, Jessica at 32, Jacob is 30, Joyce 27, and the youngest, Janice, is 15. The story I'm about to tell mostly revolves around John, the oldest. He was married to a woman named Grace, who's now 34, and together they had 2 kids, Julia, who's 13 now, and Peter, who's 10. Back when I was 16, Grace went through something absolutely horrific. Her parents were killed during an evening walk. They were mugged in an alley just as the sun was setting. I won't get into the gruesome details, but it shattered her. The man who did it is serving life, but that didn't undo the damage. Grace was so traumatized that she had a complete mental breakdown and ended up being admitted to a psychiatric facility. She stayed there for a full year. What made it even worse? Just 2 months after she was admitted, John began an affair with their next-door neighbor, Paige, who was 35 at the time and also single. That betrayal sent Grace spiraling even further. She's still in that facility today, 9 years later. John didn't wait long. He and Paige tied the knot just 6 months after his divorce from Grace was finalized. I was furious. Not just for Grace's sake, but also because of the impact it had on Juliet and Peter. I've known both kids since they were born. They're practically family to me. When my parents found out about what John did, they asked me to stop visiting Juliet and Peter. But I just couldn't bring myself to cut them off. It felt wrong, like I'd be abandoning them when they needed someone most. I was 19 at the time, living at home while attending college to save on rent, so I had the freedom to spend time with them. I never tried to fix things with John or Paige. I avoided them entirely and would just pick up Juliet and Peter to take them out for a bit, giving them a break from what honestly felt like a nightmare household. Then came the triplets. 3 girls, all born 3 years into John and Paige's marriage. After that, it was like Peter became the golden child because he was such a sweet big brother. Julia, though? She was pushed aside, and it made me furious. John was treating her like she didn't matter anymore, as if his new daughters had replaced her. Julia started spending more and more nights at my parents' place. My room basically became her safe haven. Fast forward a bit, 2 years ago, Jackson proposed. He did it in the exact spot where we had our first date, and it was magical. We knew we didn't want to rush into marriage since we were only 23 then, but I said yes. We shared the news with everyone close to us, family, friends, pretty much everyone reached out with love and excitement. Everyone, that is, except for John and Paige. We didn't hear a word from them. Now that the wedding's just a few months away, we've been deep into planning. One day, while my mom and I were talking about color palettes for the venue, my phone started ringing. I didn't catch it at first. It was all the way in the kitchen. When it rang again, I finally got to it and saw that it was Paige. I answered, and she started off with small talk. I played along until she finally brought up the wedding. She asked who the flower girls would be, and then tried to nudge her way in by suggesting her 6-year-old triplets take those spots. Thing is, I had already promised those roles to 2 of my younger cousins. They'd been dreaming about it since I got engaged, and I made them a promise I wasn't about to break. I gently told Paige that I couldn't make that change because of the commitment I had already made. And just like that, she blew up. She went off on me, and then hung up, clearly pissed off. Later that night, I told Jackson what happened while we were lying in bed. He brushed it off, told me not to stress about it. He said it was our wedding, not Paige's, and she already had hers. I agreed, smiled, and figured that was the end of it. But nope. Over the past month, I've been getting bombarded with texts, calls, and social media messages from John, Paige, and even their extended circle. They're all furious that I'm not giving their daughters the spotlight they apparently feel entitled to. Even Jessica, yes, the same Jessica who got pregnant by her sister's boyfriend at 16 and ended up marrying him after their daughter turned 1, decided to chime in. That's a whole other mess I might get into later. With everything going on, part of me is starting to wonder if I'm the bad guy here. I just want a peaceful, happy wedding where everyone's in good spirits. I don't want to start my marriage carrying the weight of family drama. So, I came here to ask, am I the one in the wrong for saying no? Edit, a few extra things I should mention. John is a corporate lawyer with some pretty deep connections, so threatening legal action to make him stop harassing me probably isn't going to do much. Also, I saw someone suggest that I might be holding a grudge against the triplets. Let me be very clear, I don't blame those girls at all. It's not their fault who their parents are, or that they're being dragged into this. I've got nothing but love for them. I've already blocked most of John and Paige's circle on Facebook and other platforms, and I'm thinking of changing my phone number too. Just need to sort a few things out first and make sure my trusted friends and family know how to reach me. My parents are aware of the situation and doing what they can to help, and Jackson's parents have also stepped in. They told John and Paige to knock it off. For what it's worth, Jackson's folks actually cut ties with John after what he did to Grace, but reconnected when the triplets were born. I get it, it's hard to ignore your grandkids, no matter how badly their parents behave. Update 1, first off, thank you all for the support. I had no idea this would get so much attention, and I appreciate every comment and message. Following a lot of your advice, I blocked most of the people who were attacking me online. Some of you said Jackson needs to stand up to his brother. He's told John to back off. But John doesn't really listen to anyone, probably because he thinks he's untouchable, being the oldest, being a lawyer, whatever. Thankfully, my future in-laws also confronted him and told him flat out he wouldn't be allowed at the wedding if he kept this up. That part kind of caught me off guard since they did it without asking me first, but honestly, I'm relieved. John's more likely to listen to them than to me. That's not the whole reason I'm updating, though. Last night, I went to pick up Julia for one of our night drives, just something we do to help her decompress, and while I was there, John's triplet daughters came running up to me, all excited, shouting about how they were going to be flower girls at my wedding. I was floored. Paige wouldn't even look me in the eye. It didn't take long to figure out she had told them they were in the wedding without even asking me. I didn't want to start a fight, so I knelt down and gently explained to the girls that while I really appreciated how excited they were, I had already picked out flower girls. To my surprise, they seemed to handle it well. I was still confused, but I let it go and took Julia out for a peaceful night drive. We ended up at a park, just relaxing. Julia and I ended up just sitting together on a bench, chatting and relaxing. At one point, I asked her, kind of bluntly and not really expecting a real answer, if the triplets had ever actually said they wanted to be part of the wedding. Julia seemed genuinely surprised by the question. She told me she knew I was getting married, of course, but the triplets had never once brought it up to her or Peter. That left me even more puzzled. So later, when I dropped Julia back off at home, I figured I'd try to talk to John myself. But the second I stepped in, Paige looked me dead in the eye and snapped, "Pee off." I just stood there, stunned, like, what did I even do? When I got back home, I waited until Jackson and I were in bed, our usual safe place to talk things out. I didn't want to bother my parents with any of this since they're juggling a bunch of stress already, renovations at home and worries about my grandma's heart condition, so I didn't want to add more to their plate. I explained everything to Jackson, and he told me that while I was out with Julia, John had actually reached out to him, too. Apparently, John told him I needed to let the triplets be flower girls. The craziest part? Neither of us even understands why they're pushing this so hard. Jackson said he'd talk to his parents again and ask them to step in. The next morning, I ended up calling out of work. I just needed a mental break. I went for a walk through the mall, grabbed a coffee, and picked up a few cute plushies to brighten up our bed. It wasn't much, but it helped take my mind off everything, even just for a little while. No new messages yet, so I'm trying to use every peaceful moment I can to rest my brain. Between work, wedding prep, and all this family drama, it's been non-stop. I'll update again if I get any clarity about why John and Paige are so desperate to get their daughters into the wedding. Update 2, hey again. Before I jump into what happened, I just want to address a few comments I saw about Jackson needing to stand up to John. I totally agree with that, and he has tried. But the truth is, John just doesn't listen to any of his siblings unless they're agreeing with him. He's arrogant like that. The only people who seem to get through to him at all are their parents, probably because he knows they won't put up with his crap. Now, as for the update, last night, I finally got the full picture. And to everyone who guessed Paige was using her daughters to try and force her way into the spotlight or gain favor in the family, ding ding ding, you were absolutely right. Turns out, both Paige and John felt it was unfair that Julia had a role as a bridesmaid while their triplets were left out entirely. And yes, Julia is absolutely in my bridal party, just in case that wasn't clear. But here's the deal, I've been close to Julia and Peter since they were born. We've built a real bond. I don't have that with the triplets, and it's not my job to manufacture it just to appease their parents. So, guess what? They're officially uninvited from the wedding. Completely blocked. This morning, while I was still asleep, Jackson went ahead and blocked both John and Paige from his phone and mine. He also told them straight up that they were no longer welcome at our wedding. I also had to block Jessica after she started attacking me online, calling me heartless and selfish for punishing innocent children. That was enough for me. I've read so many comments from folks telling me I'm not in the wrong, and I believe it now. So, I cut Jessica off too. Taking even more advice from you all, I started looking into hiring additional security for the wedding. I should have done that sooner, honestly. It was my older brother who kept telling me to block them, but for some reason, I just couldn't bring myself to do it until strangers on the internet gave me the push. I'm grateful for that. Thanks again for all your advice and support. I'll try to post again after the wedding if anything else happens. Update 3. Hey everyone, small but big news. Jackson is no longer my fiancé. He's officially my husband. We tied the knot just yesterday and moved into our new place. We're heading off on our honeymoon next week. The wedding was beautiful, peaceful, joyful, and drama-free. There was no sign of John, Paige, Jessica, or Tim. Thankfully, we followed your suggestions and gave the security team a code word to keep them out. It worked perfectly. I was also able to bring Julia and Peter to the wedding, with lots of help from my now mother and father-in-law. Julia walked down the aisle as one of my bridesmaids, and we even let Peter help out with the music since he's really into tech and audio stuff. Not sure if I mentioned that before, but he was thrilled to have a role. The best part? I finally got in touch with Grace. Between all the wedding prep and family drama, it had been hard to reach her. I asked if she wanted to come to the ceremony, but she said she wasn't sure if she was ready to face the outside world again. After almost 10 years in the facility, I can't blame her. She did say she'd love to see photos and videos, which we're happy to share. I'm now looking into helping Grace regain parental rights over Julia and Peter. Those kids deserve to be with someone who truly loves and cares about them, not just someone trying to play house for appearances. Grace is totally on board, and now it's just a matter of getting things moving. Oh, and in case you're wondering, yes, John and Paige tried to crash the wedding. But security handled it perfectly. They didn't even get past the entrance. That night, as Jackson and I finally settled into bed as husband and wife, I got a text from an unfamiliar number. Turns out, it was a group chat with John, Paige, Jessica, and Tim. I didn't even bother opening all the messages, but I skimmed just enough to see that Jessica had started dragging up old secrets I'd told her when we were close growing up, as stuff about family members, dumb mistakes I made, even gossip about ancestors. Honestly? I didn't even get mad. I thought I'd be furious, but I felt nothing. Just indifferent. I've outgrown that toxicity. Anyway, that's all for now. I might post another update if anything new unfolds, but if not, thank you for sticking with me, for hearing me out, and for helping me through one of the most stressful chapters of my life. Edit, quick little update, we've made it to Brussels. We'll be staying here for about 2 weeks. The first week and a half is just for the two of us to enjoy some peace and quiet, and we'll spend the last few days with Jackson's mom's side of the family. I'll have notifications turned off except for essentials, and we'll be back in the evenings once we're home. Update 4, hey guys. Been a bit since my last post, just wanted to fill you in. Grace is currently being re-evaluated for new treatment options, and there's a possibility she might finally be released. Jackson's dad managed to find a great lawyer to help start the process of adjusting custody arrangements, which is huge. But that's not what this update is about. 2 weeks ago, Jackson and I were at my parents' house while they were out of state visiting my uncle and his family. I was in the kitchen cooking, and Jackson was in the living room fiddling with the TV when the doorbell rang. I checked the front camera and saw Paige standing there. Jackson opened the door just a crack, keeping the chain lock on. Paige was crying and shouting, asking if we were happy now that her life was falling apart. Against my better judgment, we let her in. I didn't want a whole scene unfolding in front of the neighbors. We brought Paige inside and sat her down at the dining table. I handed her a bottle of water, and she practically chugged half of it before wiping her face and trying to pull herself together. I was still boiling inside, like, how dare she show up at my parents' place uninvited, dragging this mess to our doorstep. But I kept calm, waiting to hear what she had to say. That's when she finally opened up. After our wedding, Paige told us, she and John got into a massive fight. According to her, John said some brutal things, told her she was the biggest mistake of his life, that he hated her, and wished she'd never been his neighbor in the first place. He even said he regretted having their 3 daughters because it ruined his relationship with Julia and Peter. Hearing that shook me. For all I've said about John, he was a decent dad to Julia and Peter, at least before he forced everyone into one uncomfortable, blended family while shoving Julia aside like she didn't matter. None of it made sense to me. Then Paige dropped the real bomb. She admitted that John had been verbally abusive to her from early on in their marriage. She claimed he only had kids with her to try and win his family back, hoping that having more children would somehow earn their approval again. She said this wasn't new, it had always been this way. Jackson and I were stunned. I sat there speechless for a moment, trying to process it all. Suddenly, Paige's behavior started to make more sense. Not that it excused everything she did, but it gave context. She wasn't just entitled, she was also hurt and, apparently, manipulated for years. There was a lot more she said, but eventually Jackson gently cut in and gave her the names of a few therapists she could reach out to. That's one of the many reasons I love him. He has a good heart. Even after everything Paige put us through, he still wanted to help her find a way out. After that, Paige left. Apparently, Julia and Peter were watching the triplets for her while she came to talk. I don't know what's going to happen next, but I do know one thing. I hope Paige finds a way to leave that marriage, not just for herself, but for those 3 little girls. They're only 6 years old. They didn't ask for any of this. I also hope that Julia and Peter can be taken out of John's custody. Whether or not there's abuse happening directly to them, I don't trust him. He's unstable, and I can't shake the feeling that there's something deeply wrong with the way he treats the people closest to him. Edit, just to clarify, I'm not putting full faith in what Paige told me. I'm taking her words with caution. But if there's even a chance that what she said is true, then I want to do whatever I can to help her get out of that situation and give those kids a better life. Update 5, it's been 2 months since my last post, and a few important things have happened. First off, it turns out Paige was telling the truth, at least about the verbal abuse. My father-in-law confirmed it. He said the triplets told him in their own innocent way that Mama and Papa always yell mean things at each other. That alone says a lot. But despite everything, I doubt they'll actually get divorced. John and Paige seem more focused on putting up a perfect image than fixing what's broken. Now for some good news, Grace has finally been cleared to leave the mental hospital. She's currently staying with Joy, my sister-in-law, and her husband while she transitions back into everyday life. Jackson told me that Julia and Peter were able to see her at his parents' house. He was there when it happened, and said it was deeply emotional. And before anyone asks, yes, Grace was allowed to see them. My in-laws have John's permission to take the kids sometimes, just like I do. 2 nights ago, I went to visit Grace myself. She looked healthier than I've seen her in years. She's gained weight back, she had been dangerously thin, and her face just radiated peace. For once, she seemed genuinely happy. The custody re-evaluation started 3 weeks ago, so we're in the early stages of that process. The goal is to get Julia and Peter back with their mother, where they belong. As for me and Jackson, we're doing well. He's stepped up even more lately, especially now that he's taking a semester off from med school to be with the family. That's the main reason he wasn't as involved before. He was swamped with his studies. But now he's fully present, and it's made such a difference. It hasn't been the most dramatic update, which honestly, I'm thankful for. Things finally seem to be moving in the right direction. I'll post another update once the custody arrangements are finalized.